You just can't, roll out a dead body. And like, that's not gonna work. Hello friends, and welcome back to another episode of Beautifully Nerding. I'm your host, Auntie Bri, and James Gunn is back. We got Superman. We've gotten the announcement that he is fully taking over. He's doing all the things. Okay, he's the Kevin Feige of the DC universe. And now we're fully getting into our TV show bag because Peacemaker is back. Now, Peacemaker was one of those shows where, like, the first season, you weren't really sure what to do with it, and then you watched it, and you were pleasantly surprised. It's very James Gunn-esque. Okay, a lot of the things that happen in the show are very like, this is a James Gunn production. It's very over the top. There are very crazy, very theatrical action scenes. There's lots of cursing. There's lots of swearing. There's lots of random pop culture references. There's lots of tongue-in-cheek commentary. There's lots of blood. Gunn is going to always make sure that we have a well-rounded experience with anything that he puts out. And season 2 is no different. Season 2 did just start, so this is just a review of episode 1. But I feel like this season we're definitely going to get a bit more of the post I saved the world breakdown from everyone. Because even with just in the first episode, we see everyone's differing struggles of how they are currently dealing with the fact that they had a hand in saving the world. They went through this big drama and trauma and expected their life to go a particular way. And things don't always work out the way that you want them to. They are kind of dealing with the fact that their expectations are not meeting their reality. And it's very interesting to see each of them are kind of on their own separate paths in this first episode. But I'm sure as the rest of the season comes together, we're going to see them come back to one another, have to do their team up, have to realize that they are stronger as a unit and help bring out the best in each other. They are definitely struggling on their own. Now, I will say it definitely took me a little bit longer to watch this first episode. It definitely gave more The Boys than your typical DC show would have. And there are some scenes that legitimately are supposed to get a lot of deep emotion out of you, to where there's also just a lot of emotions, a lot of roller coastering that I was not prepared for at the moment. And I was like, let me take a break real quick, because this is a lot. Because we already saw in like the teasers and the trailers that we have a lot of guest appearances in this, and it's interesting to see how all of it is going to come together. Like, how much is James Gunn gonna lean into having characters cross over into other series and IP, because we had Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific in the Superman movie. Now we have Max Lord joining Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl in Peacemaker, and it's like, are we having all of these other characters come in just to add to the plot? Or do we not believe that maybe these sub-characters are strong enough to stand on their own for their next thing? Because, we have Green Lantern series is coming up. So, like, is it just that Guy is so important to adding to the plot of Superman and the Peacemaker that when we get to the Green Lantern show that it'll add to it? Or is it just like, are we... I don't know. There's a lot to think about. So, we just kind of have to wait it out and see what happens. So in the first episode of season 2 of Peacemaker, we see Chris dealing with just kind of having to be right now. He saved the world. He's technically officially a superhero, but he's currently still living at his dad's house. He is not a member of the Justice Gang, and he's kind of feeling a little directionless. Like, Eagly's having to wake him up at times to be like, hey, bruh, like, I need to go stretch my wings. Like, let me outside. And instead of going outside, they go to the quantum pocket dimension universe thingy. And I always thought it was so interesting because when we went in there the first time, he didn't walk around. And I was like, because Vigilante was like, oh, how is it so big in here? And I was like, how do we know that it's that big? Because y'all were just standing there. Like, we don't see any of the vastness. So finally, Chris is able to walk around, and we see that there, of course, with it being a pocket dimension, there are other entrances. So I guess it's like a pocket timeshare, because like everybody has access to it, but they get in a different way. And he's walking, trying to find Eagly, because Eagly was flying around. And he sees a like container of helmets that looks very similar to how his setup was, but there's like way more helmets. It's different because like I just walked away from my stuff. I know I didn't turn around. So how is this with my emblem over here? And he sees a keypad and he's like, this looks very similar to mine. He tries his code. It works. And he goes in. And it's just like this big old mansion, and there's like news articles of heroics, and the trio does this, that, and the third. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. And while he's in that pocket dimension, his dad walks by and it's like, oh, you like you're seeing a ghost. And Chris runs off because he's like, excuse me? Which is crazy because like you would hope that he doesn't run to his son again in the hallway. Like that was my immediate thought. But you know, sometimes I be overthinking stuff. Chris is like, there's a whole other timeline over here where my dad is still alive and we work together and things are happening. And we go over with Harcourt, and Harcourt is struggling too because she also was not able to get these new occupations that she's trying for, because all she's ever been trained to do is to be, you know, this like military, fight people, shoot first, ask questions. Like that's all she knows. And all the other agencies are like, for the love of God, no, we cannot have you and your temperament here. Essentially, like she's so down on herself that she's like going into bars and starting fights just to feel something. Like we see her pretty well handle herself against like a number of guys in a bar. The tables turn, she gets her ass handed to her and they throw her out and she smiles. And I'm like, you got issues, girl. Leota is dealing with the fallout of her partner fully broken up with her, kicked her out because, you know, she's still trying to live this super dangerous superhero life. And her partner is like, you're simply just a human. I cannot stay with you if you do all these dangerous things. And Leota is like, well, this is what makes me happy and I'm going to do it. And so I guess in the in-between time, she was like, yeah, you can go ahead and kick rocks. And so she's trying to kind of moonlight her own like security agency type thing. And we don't get as much of an introduction of her story, but we do see that her and Economos are still close. So we see them conversing a few times. And she also still talks with Chris. And, you know, she is able to between relay message between the two of them, but then also like be a friend and a listening ear to the both of them. Because while Chris is dealing with the downfall of not having any superheroing to do, Economos is also just kind of stuck on van duty, where he is having to sneak and watch Peacemaker, and he has to report to Rick Flag Sr. Sr. is like, I know that Chris killed my son, and I'm gonna figure out a way to make that dude pay for his crimes. But the biggest part of this episode is in Chris trying to deal with his emotions of knowing that there is another space and time out there where his dad is still alive. He does all the drugs, drinks all the drinks, and the party is a little bit too much for him, so he goes back into the quantum pocket dimension timeshare, and it's like, let me see how this other timeline is, you know, let me see how my dad is doing. And while he's there, he goes outside and he sees a truck come up, and it's his brother. So his brother is also still alive in this timeline. So they are one big happy loving family. We don't fully address the whole like clan aspect of it, but his dad still does have a similar costume as he had in season 1, except it's blue this time instead of red, but like it still has the horns. So I feel like they're all three probably just very highly racist, but you know, that's not the point of episode 1. The point of episode 1 is like the groundwork and the foundation that he could still have not only his dad but his brother. And so they sit and talk, have all this good time catching up. And I'm sitting here like, I'm understanding that the dad and the brother said that they thought that Chris was still like out of the country or whatever, but like, you getting real comfortable, my guy, because at some point you do have to go back to your own timeline. And what's going to happen then? Because the whole time I'm thinking, like, okay, so y'all thought he came back home from his trip and y'all sitting there talking. So when this Chris leaves and Chris 2 comes back and y'all start asking him questions, oh, we were just talking last night. And then Chris 2 is like, no, I literally just got back in. As they are, you know, finishing up their night and everyone's saying their goodbyes and I love yous and all that good stuff. Chris is like slowly making his way back, you know, still like looking at things. And we hear second Chris behind him. And he's like, who are you? How'd you get in here? How'd you get my face? Are you a shapeshifter? What's going on? Our Peacemaker tries to like disarm him, run away, try to get back to the thing, but he's not fast enough. Chris 2 has these like heat-seeking stars on his helmet. He like shoots those out and those like go and chase Peacemaker and they're like tearing up his back, but he does get into, you know, the quantum timeshare. And of course, he doesn't close the door. Like, oh my, I was at this point I was screaming. I was like, close the door. And the other, you know, Peacemaker flies in there after him and he's like giving him like a chase. Like, obviously, you know, this is a Peacemaker who was like very well trained and, you know, has had that guidance and mentorship growing up the whole time. So he's way better at what he's doing than our Chris is. But he gets impaled and ends up dying in the quantum timeshare. And so now we're like, okay, does Chris 1 just have to operate in both timelines? Because I don't think the dad and the brother in timeline 2 saw that Chris 2 came back because they had both went to sleep while Chris 1 was exiting. So like you just had a conversation with them. You just can't, you know, roll out a dead body and like that's not gonna work. So I'm interested to see how this season is going to go, because we've already shenaned in this very first episode. So we know that we're going to shenan again. And I'm excited to see what happens. If you all are watching Peacemaker, please leave a like on this video. If you all have any theories about what is in store for season 2, please leave a comment down below. Make sure to share this video with all of your friends. And I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.